الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على نبيه وآله وصحبه أجمعين. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most gracious, and peace and prayers be upon His Messenger Muhammad. السيدات والسادة الكرام، أسعد الله صباحكم بالخير والمسرات، وأهلا ومرحبا بكم في اليوم الثاني من أيام مؤتمر تمويل المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second day of SMA Financing Conference 2019. نود التنويه بأن خدمة الترجمة الفورية متوفرة طيلة فترة هذا المؤتمر من العربية إلى الإنجليزية ومن الإنجليزية إلى العربية. Please note that simultaneous interpretation service is provided throughout by our hosts at the entrance of these gates. إذن السيدات والسادة الكرام، نستكمل مسيرة هذا المؤتمر الناجح، إذ أننا ولله الحمد حظينا بمؤتمر بيوم أول للمؤتمر ناجح، كان ناجحا حقيقة بجميع المعايير، وتشرفنا أيضا مساء البارحة بحضور معالي وزير التجارة والاستثمار ونخبة كبيرة من المتحدثين البارزين في هذا المجال، وحظينا بمؤتمر وأمسية جميلة، ونستكمل هذه المسيرة مع خلاصة وعما تم مناقشته ليلة البارحة. وسوف يتحدث لنا السيد ماثيو جيمس، المدير التنفيذي لمنتدى تمويل المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة من مؤسسة التمويل الدولية. Please, ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Mr. Matthew James.
So, assalamu alaikum, sabah khair again. Welcome everyone. It's again a pleasure to be here. I'm standing in for Nabila because she and some of our World Bank colleagues were called to an urgent meeting at the ministry this morning. So I am going to briefly take us through some of the main events of yesterday's program. We have a very exciting program coming, so I don't want to take too much of your time, but you may remember that we started yesterday with a presentation from our futurist, Mark Pesce. And Mark was talking about how technology is changing the world and what implications that may have for our field of SME financing. And he started with talking about how we have now new ways that machines are interacting with machines. And then we talked about how machines are interacting with people. And finally, how even the way that people are interacting with people are having to change because of technology. And in fact, the message that I was taking away at the end was the greater importance of mentoring, because mentoring is one of those things that no matter how advanced we make artificial intelligence, it's going to be very difficult and much more time-consuming to produce mentors from machines than it is to produce machines that can do things like read financial statements or medical charts or other things. So from that, we moved to a panel which I moderated on new directions in SME banking, and we had bankers and financiers representing Europe, the emerging markets, and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And we talked about how this new world of much more digital data, both about finances and about commercial activity, is changing the way that we can work with the SME sector. And a sector that has been very difficult for bankers and really only approachable in the past through strong, extensive, but also costly human effort, is now open to new possibilities for mixtures, much as, in that way, very much connecting to what Mark was talking about how now we have ways that we can interact machines to humans, machines to machines, and this is all finding its way into SME banking. We then had a panel on guarantees. We had a number of representatives of guarantee schemes from around the world, as well as from Kafalah. And Guarantees, as we are hearing, are becoming increasingly important because while we are able to do more and more things in making SME finance more efficient, more effective, more scalable, the aftermath of the financial crisis is putting a great premium on bank capital and other things. So it has vaulted the role of guarantees and risk sharing and capital relief to a whole new position. And so it was very useful to hear about the role of guarantee companies, how it's evolving in different countries. And then, of course, the final element was to bring the new fintechs into the equation. And we had a panel on the new fintechs and what they are offering. We had a number of different representatives representing different aspects of financial technology, some that can compete with banks, some that can cooperate, and some that, as in the case of Demika, actually can do both, and can even do both in the same market. And we talked about the conditions under which fintechs can grow and flourish, and about the partnerships and what facilitates partnerships between the formal financial sector and the newcomers from the fintech sector, and what can discourage it. So it was a fascinating set of panels, and it gave us much to think about as we go into today, where we're going to dive deeper into critical elements of SME financing, and I am going to leave it to our Master of Ceremonies to take us into that new space. So thank you all. That was a very brief summary of today, and I look forward very much to the panels of yesterday, and I look forward very much to today's panels.
I'd like to invite the panelists for this session and the panel moderator to the stage, please. إذن سيدير هذه الجلسة مشكورا السيد همام هاشم مدير عام برنامج كفالة، فليتفضل هو والمتحدثين. إذن تأتي هذه الجلسة بعنوان توسيع حلول التمويل للشركات الصغيرة والمتوسطة من قبل شركات التمويل. بينما تمثل البنوك أحد المصادر الرئيسية لتمويل المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة، يمكن لمجموعة من شركات التمويل غير البنكية تقديم قروض بديلة للشركات المتوسطة، بما في ذلك خدمات التأجير والتضخيم. ستستكشف هذه الجلسة كيف يمكن لمؤسسات التمويل الأصغر أن تضع نفسها بشكل تنافسي في سوق تمويل المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة، وتسلط الضوء على التحديات والفرص في المملكة العربية السعودية. سيرأس هذه الجلسة مشكورا كما ذكرنا سعادة الأستاذ همام هاشم مدير عام برنامج كفالة، فليتفضل هو والمتحدثين مشكورين.
Is the voice clear? Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Sallallahu sabakum jami'an. Good morning, everyone. Thank you once again. And I would like to start with thanking everyone for an amazing day which we all attended yesterday, especially by the opening and also by the closing of the day, where we had a very nice ceremony yesterday. And today I believe that we will have another rich day of information that we will share with everyone. Today our session will talk about expanding financing solution for SMEs by non-banking financing institutes. As you know, while banks represent one of the key sources of SME financing, a range of non-bank financing institutes, or NBFIs, can provide alternative lendings to SMEs, including leasing and factoring services. The session will explore how NBFIs can position themselves competitively in the SME financing market, and highlighting challenges and opportunities in the context of the Saudi market. Around 8 years ago, Salman or central bank started the exercise of setting a framework that regulate MBFIs in Saudi Arabia. Today, 20 banks and MBFIs are licensed for mortgages financing, and 30 MBFIs are licensed for non-mortgages financing license. As shared with you yesterday only, SAMA announced for the first time ever that SME lending rate in the quarter 4 2018 represents 6% of the total lending in Saudi Arabia. That's 108 billion Saudi riyal, of which 7.7 billion Saudi riyal represent for NBFIs. The amount of 7.7 clustered to three areas: 1.2 billion for micro, 3.2 billion for small, 3.3 billion for medium. And that's, a major change, with compared to banks, where 75% of the banking lending focused on the medium size. And that it gives us the sense how the market differentiate between MBFIs, and banks. SAMA have also issued multiple licenses during the past 7 years, including anti-money laundering regulation for MBFIs, financing leasing framework, MBFIs monitoring, mortgages license monitoring. Also, Central Bank has set a clear framework for ratings through specific team handling policies and procedure, monitoring, licensing, execution, site visit, and office inspections. Simultaneously, they set a very strong framework for quality assurance. Please welcome with me our panelist, Ms. Batul. I hope that I announced the family name correct.
Right, yeah.
Okay, Kurtulus, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Badr and Mr. Mazen Skaf. Okay, and I will give the chance to everyone to introduce himself and give a clear about the license.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you for your team and for the World Bank, because it's a wonderful organization since yesterday. This is my first time in Saudi Arabia, and I really enjoyed to participate in this meeting and meet with the people, sharing with all these experiences. I hope that it will both help to finance side and the corporate side of the audience. My name is Betül Kurtuluş. I am chapter director of the FCI, responsible from Southeastern Europe, Central Eastern Europe, including Turkey and the whole Middle East. I have more than 27 years experience in the factoring and leasing industry. And since 2016, I have been one of the members of the association in Turkey for non-bank financial institutions. I joined FCI at the beginning of this year. I would like to give brief information who is FCI, what we are doing. We are the ruling authority and the biggest factoring network of the receivable finance, and we have 400 members in 90 countries. What we are doing is what our members are doing. We are guaranteeing the receivables, we are providing finance, we are doing collection for those receivables that we guaranteed before. So it is, especially for the SMEs, it's a very good tool for financing themselves. And what we are doing is we are providing a legal framework and the infrastructure for communicating and for transferring the money. That's
great.
That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Badr.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم جميعا. Good morning ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Humam and Kafalah for putting up such a wonderful event. I wish them all the success in the future. My name is Badr Aswailim. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Saudi Oryx Leasing Company. Saudi Oryx is part of Oryx Japan Group. Oryx is a listed company in Tokyo and New York Stock Exchange. It's one of the large companies globally in the leasing, financing, and other services. Oryx works in more than 38 countries around the world, more than 35,000 employees, and with assets size of around $100 billion. I started my career in finance and accounting. I got my CPA from the American Institute and the Saudi Organization of CPAs. And then after 15 years, I decided it was enough with finance and accounting. And I shifted to business. And ever since, I have been managing companies in different businesses, retail, wholesale, and projects business, until I joined Saudi Oryx around 4 years ago. So for a change, I'm not an ex-banker. I don't know if that's good or bad, but we'll see as we go. Basically, Saudi Oryx was the first finance company to be established in Saudi Arabia around 18 years ago, and we provide leasing and financing options to SMEs and corporates.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, Dr. Mazel, you can give us a brief.
Thank you, Mr. Hammam. Let me start by congratulating Mr. Hammam and the Kafalah program for having put such an amazing conference and bringing the right stakeholders to as part of this forum. And congratulations on all the progress over the last several years of the initiatives led by Kafalah. My name is Mazen Scaf. I'm a partner and managing director with Strategic Decisions Group. It's a strategy firm headquartered in Silicon Valley in California, and we do work across the globe. I'm also a member of the advisory board of Talia. Talia is the leader in supply chain finance, and we have a platform that's based on artificial intelligence to enable supply chain finance solutions for buyers and suppliers across the globe. We have more than 130 of the largest corporations on our platform and over 1.7 million suppliers spread across 160 countries. We process about $250 billion per year of spend on the platform and enable suppliers, many of which are SMEs like the focus of this conference, to accelerate the payments of their invoices. As my colleague Mr. Toole said, accelerating payments for small and medium enterprises is key to help them in their finances, and it provides an alternative to what banks would provide in terms of financing solutions to SMEs. So I'm delighted to be here. I have a lot of passion around enabling SMEs. They're a big part of the drivers of any economy. In any economy, between 60% and 85% of net new jobs are being created at the SME level. That's why it's so important that we provide these financing solutions. Thank you, and I'm delighted to be part of this.
Thank you. To start with, banks always, we speak about them that they are the founding and the finders of financing. But ABFI, they play a major area where they do dynamic business dynamics. Today I was just chatting with our panelists, and we gave an example how fast the MBFIs can do the performance. We all remember about almost a year ago when a royal decree came and said that slaves, they can drive now in Saudi Arabia, which is, it created a great booming for the leasing and for the auto financing in Saudi Arabia, where half of the society started to drive now. I remember the announcement came around 9:30 p.m. and it takes me just 5 minutes. I was in the same seat as our colleagues there to speak to my boss, who was the director of NBFI, and we designed within 5 minutes a campaign for leads. And we announced it in Twitter, and it takes 35,000 retweets within half an hour. We just designed it and we announced it. The first bang, it came, after 10 or 15 days. So that's how dynamics can be applied. So I would like to speak with our team and to share with them how MPFIs can do, how they can serve and what is the approach of MBFI to serve SME and getting their finance. I will start with the Batu, please.
It is, the continuous finance, reaching the finance for SMEs is difficult in every countries of the world, because especially in the emerging countries. But it is even difficult for the non-bank financial institutions to reach the cheap finance and provide this finance to their customers. So I would like to talk a bit further factoring, because factoring is a very good instrument for SMEs to reaching the fast and cheap finance. I would like to give an example from my experience in the export factoring, because receivable finance is a generic term. So under the receivable finance, we have different products like reverse factoring, Islamic factoring, invoice discounting, asset-based finance. All kind of these instruments we are serving for our clients. On the export and import factoring, what we are doing is we are securing the receivables. And those secured receivables, especially, is not secured in the countries of the receivable. It's because it's an export receivable, it's secured on the exported country. So it is secured, especially for the big banks. Those secured receivables, usually it is very easy to finance for the finance companies. So for the non-bank financial institutions, it is difficult to reach the cheap finance on the export side, usually. All members in the world providing guaranteed receivables finance with a very, very supported prices on the export side. But from my experience in Turkey, for non-bank financial institutions for funding the SMEs in the domestic market, usually the advantages, it's a very, very, very good example. You have to be fast for your credit decisions, and you have to be very competitive, and you have to be cheap. But it is difficult for non-bank financial institutions. But the decision process is very important, because SMEs, they need financing on a daily basis, even in the domestic or the export business. So the most advantage of the non-bank financial institution decision processes. So you gave the example that you took your decision in almost 4 minutes. So it is, in Turkey, we have separate kind of factoring companies. Some only serving for the SMEs, and they have a very, very good structure. The decision process is almost in a minute, like a private credits, personal credits. In a minute, you have to decide, because you have to provide some competitive advantage to the market.
Thank you, Mr. Badr. Okay. The approach for what is the approach to get MBFI getting financing? How they get
financing? Well, basically, talking about local NBFIs, or for the sake of this discussion, I'm going to call them finance companies, if you don't mind.
Yes.
I think finance companies deserve their own name.
All right.
Basically, local banks, this is one of the main sources of funding. International banks, of course, and if I talk about ourselves, We were one of the first companies to issue listed sukuk in a few years ago. And of course, recently, as we all know, the Munsha'at initiative for extending loans to SMEs. So this is becoming now one of the source of fundings for the finance companies. This is mainly the source of fundings available for finance companies.
And what about whether the SMEs, how they can get their financing from your side?
In terms of process?
Yes.
Nothing special. Basically, what finance companies require is more or less similar to other large financial institutions. They have to provide the documentations, audited financials, and if the product is asset leasing, then there is an extension of requirement that focus on the asset quality, whether it's new from a supplier or if it's a sell and lease back of an asset. So standard information, and that gives an idea about the SME as well as the assets, if any.
Okay, Dr. Manzil.
Thank you, Sir Salman. As you know, the issue of receivables for SMEs is critical, and delays in obtaining payments on these receivables can make a difference between being in a solvent situation or in an insolvent situation. So we built the platform for Talia to address exactly this issue, and we enable buyers, very large corporations around the world, and their suppliers to conduct e-invoicing for sure, but also to accelerate payments to suppliers, and that's a critical source of funding from non-banks in general for suppliers. And any supplier can, on the platform, electronically and in a very dynamic process, decide on whether to accelerate payments in one of two ways. Either accepting a discounted offer from the buyer themselves, we call this dynamic discounting, or through third-party finance, banks and other financial institutions on the platform are offering the suppliers, if the invoice is approved by the buyer, and let's say it's based on a 120-day term or 90-day term, they can offer payment either immediately or within a shorter time frame, let's say 30 days, in return for a certain fee or finance charge that the supplier can choose. And that's all happening dynamically on the platform, and this helps suppliers to reduce their days sales outstanding, which is critical for them, enhance their balance sheets, reduce their counterparty risk to specific buyers that they're dealing with, and in some cases, if they've got a lot of exposure to a specific buyer, let's say a supplier to Aramco has a lot of receivables from Aramco, and they want to sell more, but their risk management directives do not allow them to do that. Once they solve this and accept a payment from a third-party financier on the platform, then they can turn around and sell more to Aramco or whatever the buyer is. So it has multiple benefits to the suppliers, and this is really addressing a key pain point. And if you think about it, traditionally, very large corporations used to borrow indirectly from smaller suppliers that have a higher cost of capital by delaying payments. And that's really inefficient. So this whole platform and our technology is designed to address this, and it's creating a lot of demand for this and meeting the unmet need in the market there.
Excellent. We would love to know for each one of you, what is the target sectors of businesses that normally come to your business? Okay, I will start with Batul.
Especially from the FCI point of view, I can say that we mainly working on the tech side.
All right.
And machinery and transportation also, and manufacturing. Why those sectors is suitable for factoring? Because of the value dates, it's not the payment term is up to 120, maximum 150 days, and usually the buyers are the big ones, the suppliers are the small ones, and the buyers are the big ones. So it is very suitable because normally on the factoring side, the SMEs, they are reaching the finance with their receivables only. It is not depending on their balance sheet or their off-balance sheet collaterals kind of things. It's only for their receivables. So the receivables from the credible buyer means continuous credit in factoring. So it is, those sectors is very suitable because especially from Turkey, we have a huge amount of textile export. And usually the suppliers, they are financially weak SMEs, and their balance sheet is not suitable for having finance from the banking sector. But the receivables are very credible. They're belonging, they're coming from the big names, and from this big names, it is very easy for those receivables to reach the cheap finance. So textile is the first one. So especially in manufacturing, we have a huge turnover.
And what was the average ticket size normally in US dollars? Can you give us
The average ticket size is up to 100,000, 200,000 kind of things. It's small, it's not a big one.
And the
But
turnover,
the yearly turnover on the buyer base,
Right.
it's on a yearly turnover, it's $1 million US dollar to 25 million US dollar.
so it will have a fast cycle.
It is, yes.
It's fast cycle, so it will be multiple times and you need to do it fast.
It is, yes.
Right.
So the infrastructure should be very, very good because the production process is very fast for them. So they need finance. Not only they ship the goods before the goods, but it's technically we have some kind of new products we call purchase order management. It is not the post-shipment finance, it's the pre-shipment finance, which is very suitable for the SMEs because usually they need before the shipment, not after the shipment. But it's of course it's a very short-term finance, and it is turnover is rolling maybe 6-8 times a year.
So secret is a bureaucracy. You don't need to have that much of bureaucracy. You need swift and fast action.
It is. And under the FCI, we have a very good infrastructure, shared technology, and shared legal framework. It's very easy for the SMEs because it is they are not exporting only one country. They have to know the different countries' infrastructures, AML rules or KYC rules, kind of things. So we are providing as an FCI member or members providing one shared legal framework to them, and also our members they know the country's difficulties. For example, in Turkey, SMEs usually need finance before the shipments, and if their agreements are not allowing them to have this finance before the shipment, at least they need finance the day they ship the goods. So our infrastructure permitting us to finance them on a daily basis. When we have the exporting documentations in 1 or 2 hours, we're financing the SMEs.
Badr, can you give us, some idea about the target sectors also?
Yes, in our case, actually, we have aligned ourselves with the sectors targeted by the Vision 2030, and that was a few years ago when the construction and contracting sector started to slow down. Further, we are in more alignment with these sectors due to our partnership with Kafalah and with Munshaat, whereby these sectors are actually preconditions to transact under these two programs. So these are our main targeted sectors: education, health, transportation, food, tourism. We still do, of course, transactions out of these sectors, but very selectively, and we still carry a significant part of our portfolio construction and contracting or other sectors. However, going forward, this is our main focus.
And what would be the average ticket size and the average tenure for your business?
Average ticket size, you can say between 3 million to 5 million Saudi riyal. And the tenor, basically, we provide between 3 to 5 years.
Finance. And it's all operation lease or?
No, actually, we have two products. One is the finance lease. The other one is murabaha. And finance lease basically usually is asset leasing.
Right.
And it's a mid to long term tenor in nature.
Mr. Mazen, can you give us
In terms of sectors, we're heavily deployed, or we have a lot of clients on the platform from aircraft manufacturing in general, pharmaceuticals, oil and gas, consumer goods, petrochemicals. And so far, we've focused on buyers, the main clients that get on the platform, that have yearly spend above $1 billion. Later on, we're coming up with other products to bring in other buyers. But if you think about buyers with a yearly spend above $1 billion, and some of them have more than $30 billion in spend, once they're on the platform, because of the technology we have and the scalability of the solution, it's so easy to get a lot of suppliers on the platform. And we have suppliers who are invoicing less than $1 million per year to these buyers. And that's how we're helping the SMEs. And in addition to the private sector, we also have some very large government procurement organizations on the platform, like the Government Procurement Organization of the United Kingdom signed up to be on the Talia platform. So in terms of sectors, we're pretty broad. Right now, we're focusing on clients or buyers that have spent above $1 billion, and gradually we're moving lower in terms of that threshold. But in terms of the suppliers and why it's important to SMEs, all suppliers of these buyers are getting on the platform.
Now, with this type of business, challenges always come. So, risk and risk mitigation is the name of the game. So, I would love to hear, actually, what's the type of challenges and risk for each type of your businesses facing, and how do you mitigate this type of risk? I'll start with Batul.
Yeah, risk mitigation is a big issue, especially in the small ticket sizes,
Right.
because what I see, the fraud cases in different part of the world is almost the same. It is interesting. What is happening in China is almost the same cases happening in Romania or maybe in Latin America somewhere, but the cases is almost the same. So, and especially in the small ticket sizes, we see that the insurance policies do not work so properly. So, what we are doing in factoring is a receivable finance. So, we are working on the invoices. So, we are following each invoices. It is completely different from the insurance scheme because in the insurance part, you're only analyzing the balance sheet of the buyer. So, which is if there will be a fraud, it's usually the balance sheets are not prepared for these cases. So it is in factoring we are taking the assignment of the invoices, and our members for the collection, they are connecting for the buyer, they are connecting to the buyers for each invoices. So there is a personal connection for the collecting of those receivables. This really mitigates many risks. So, of course, we have many procedures for know your customer things, etc. But if you are doing this kind of things on the paper, simply it doesn't work. So, on the factoring, the collection processes, it's very, very helpful for knowing the buyer, connecting with the buyer in their own language, and controlling the buyer, their existence and the power to pay that invoices. So what are the challenges? Is I want to give you some statistical information. The growth rate of factoring for the last 20 years, So it is, the 10% is much higher than the even emerging and growing countries' growth rate. So there is a need for this kind of product. But the problem is, for me, the crucial question is there enough understanding from the SMEs for this kind of products? It is also very important.
I see. I see. And does the inflation or does FX impact your business?
No, it is not because we are taking the receivables on its own currency.
Right.
If it is a dollar basis or US basis or any other currency, we are taking the assignments on its own currency and we are funding these invoices on its own currency. So there is no effect risk or inflation risk at all. The inflation risk is their own risk, right. So we cannot mitigate this one. But we don't have an FX risk. But if the client, the supplier needs funding not for the invoice of the currency, we can do it also. But it is their own risk. If they want to take this FX risk, it is okay for us. But normally we are funding on the currency of the invoices.
Excellent. Mr. Badr, can you give us some highlight on the risk and risk mitigation, please?
Sure. The challenges with the SMEs are a number of them. If I would classify them, I would say from information perspective and people perspective. In terms of information, it's quite challenging. Availability, accuracy, predictability. SMEs, in many cases, they do not recruit very expensive CFOs or finance managers, and they don't also sometimes recruit top-tier external auditors. So finding the information and relying on the information is quite challenging. In terms of people, there are a number of challenges. Typically in an SME, there is a lot of centralization of authorities, dependency on few people. If the owner of the organization is out on vacation, our rent will be delayed. These kind of things. At the same time, in the finance department, as I mentioned, they do not. In many cases, they do not invest in the high caliber resources. So, how do we deal with these situations? Basically, in terms of information, we try to verify and validate. We use external sources to verify. In terms of people, we study the owners, we study the organizations, we take references, and in general, we try to do business with the SMEs who have been in operation successfully for a number of years, say around 3 years at least. And of course, we take references from different sources about the owners. Of course, SEMA is a very important tool to check the credit of the SME. And however, having said so, we have relations with SMEs for more than 10-15 years, going very well. So if you are experienced enough and you know how to manage the business in the sector, you will overcome these challenges.
Thank you. Dr. Mazen?
Thank you. As you know, because of the large number of buyers and suppliers on the platform, we have access to very large data sets. We have 1.7 million suppliers on the platform, and every day there is at least 1 million interaction across suppliers and buyers on the platform. So this provides a lot of data. So we can tell for this buyer and this supplier relationship, once an invoice is issued, and even before approval, this is the likelihood of it being paid by such and such a date. After it's been approved, this is the likelihood of it being paid by such and such a date. This provides a lot of information in real time, And using AI, we can come up with optimized offers in real time for discounting. But not only that, we can come up with new products and services that we are offering, and it's getting more and more sophisticated, and thanks to the data that we have. And if you think about the overall value proposition to the suppliers and the financiers of the suppliers, just having the platform reduces the risk because it's improving their balance sheet, and also because of how we're facilitating the e-invoicing process, the acceleration of payments, and now we just introduced recently, in partnership with Google, cognitive invoicing. If you think about it, invoices come in so many different shapes and forms, and because of our advantage of dealing with so many suppliers, and using AI, we are able to interpret most invoices, and using Google's technology, we put our hands together, and now we're enabling cognitive invoicing to even further streamline the whole operation, and that further reduces the delays in payments, the errors in payments and invoicing, and overall risk exposure to SMEs.
Great. So I can see that speed is the added values in all the three schemes as we heard today, and this is a secret for SME and SME to get access to their financing, the speed of decisioning, and execution. It's not only the decision, execution is more important than probably the pricing, and this is the secret of the equation for SME to give them the right support in the right time so that they can survive in a better way and they can get access to more and more business. Now, let me sell Kafalah and the loan guarantee program more. And how do you think that a loan guarantee program can be more productive to your business? And what do you need from the loan guarantee program to support you and to furnish you so that we can serve the SME business more and more? I will start with Batul.
The infrastructure is very important, especially on the legal side, because the non-bank financial institutions, they need to reach of course, the speed is very important, the decision process is very important, but person as the professionals that they can do this once in their company, they have to for compete with the big banks. But the legal structure and the legal understanding is very important on the regulatory basis and on the law basis. So it is these kind of meetings is very, very important for the stakeholders to understand each other. For example, in Turkey, non-bank financial institutions, especially the factoring companies, they are not accepted as finance companies until the law. The law has been approved in 2012, and after the law, the factoring companies accepted as a financial institution. So it makes very, very big differences on the tax-wise or on the some different aspects of the law. And for example, the supply chain finance as an instrument accepted as a factoring business, so it is with the law. So it is very important, but it is difficult and it is very time-consuming to change something on the law basis or on the regulatory basis from the first factoring operations till the law. In Turkey, it has been 30 years. And legal people in Turkey, they were very supportive with the representative of the factoring, leasing, and finance companies. But it is, it's almost 30 years, they accepted everything. After the law, we structured very, very different instruments. For example, we have a funding from Exim Bank now for the SMEs, both import and the domestic business. It is very difficult before the law to have the fund from the Exim Bank, and it is very, very supported prices, even cheaper than the big bank loans. And after the law, we have funding possibilities from another governmental bank in Turkey. It is a Takas Bank. So the financing companies, they are lending their excess money to Takas Bank, and the companies, non-bank financial institutions, they can get finance from the Takas Bank. So the regulatory things is very, very important for the non-bank financial institutions, which they can provide this finance to the SMEs.
Mr. Badr?
Kafalah program is quite key for finance companies. If I talk about ourselves being a very conservative company, there is a good segment of business that we are letting go, or we are declining because of our strict guidelines in terms of security and exposure and so on. Having Kafalah program gives the finance company an encouragement to tap into certain segments where the business is good and reliable. However, it's the finance company is looking for more security, and having Kafalah security will add a lot of value to this segment. So together with Kafalah, we can partner to reach out to more SMEs than before. How can Kafalah be more effective and more supportive? I think what Kafalah is doing now is actually a great support in terms of changing or revamping the operation in Kafalah, the reduction of time in terms of approval, which came down, as we heard yesterday, from 17 days to 3 days. The cost, of course, is a significant factor. And as you know, as my colleague also mentioned, finance companies are not in an advantage in terms of pricing. So the pricing and the cost of any guarantee puts the finance company in an additional disadvantage towards the SMEs, especially in comparison to banks, where they provide very competitive rates. However, I think Munshaat also initiative is a way of offsetting these costs.
Thank you. Dr. Mazen, if you can.
Yes, Target's platform and supply chain finance solutions are complementary to what Kafalah is doing. So if we were to think about suppliers or SMEs before the introduction of supply chain finance, or what people call reverse factoring, they would take their receivables, try to go to a bank to get financing against these receivables. That's called traditional factoring. And usually the banks either turn them down or charge them a much higher rate based on their creditworthiness to finance these receivables. With supply chain finance or reverse factoring, because the buyer has a much higher creditworthiness usually than the small suppliers or the small SMEs, you can obtain financing at a much lower rate. So you obtain financing of these receivables at the lower advantage rate of the buyer, and that helps accelerate the payments, reduce the cost of doing business for the SMEs, enhance their balance sheet, and it's all very complementary to Kafalah's initiatives. And from that perspective, we see that as a complementary approach.
Okay, excellent.
This supply chain solution, because this is very important for what I see from my personal experience on the reverse factoring side and the supply chain solutions. Especially the suppliers are the SMEs, they are small companies, and they do not want to enter new financial solutions, even they need it, because it's very difficult for them to understand the infrastructure. Technically, it is difficult, and usually it is the programs are. Lately, we have new programs in different languages,
Yes.
but it is generally in English, so if they do not have any knowledge, so they do not want to go into the new systems. So even they need this product, but it is difficult for them to accept this one into their companies, especially international side. I can see this deficiency. So as an FCI, we have a new product, is an FCI reverse. It's a new software, and we have a network. 90 countries, so we have our members in different countries, so-called explain how they can launch this product into your company.
Yes.
Because supply chain product is, they have difficulties in launching for a different part of the world. Even it's a very good solution,
Yes.
and it is very supported rates because of the buyer's credibility. But this is a very important deficiency.
That's a very good point, and that's why we have a rigorous supplier onboarding program. And to the extent we can partner with FCI and organizations like you to increase the leverage and onboard even more suppliers and educate them, because there's an education process in onboarding suppliers, as you said. That'll be a win for everyone.
Because we analyzed the time period of this launching this product, the whole time period. The establishment is costly, but it is almost take 3-4 months.
Mm-hmm.
But onboarding of the supplier, it's take more than sometimes a year, because it is very difficult for different authorities, different regulatory frameworks, and different languages.
Correct.
So the difficult part is the
Onboarding.
onboarding the suppliers.
Correct. Correct. And we can talk more about that to the extent that's of interest.
That's right. Dr. Mazen, I received a question. It says that most of leasing and financing company supply chain financing does not reach small SMEs. They work on large SME. Is that a right, statement we say that in the mature market like the US market?
It depends on the market, it depends on the industry vertical, and I'll give you an example. And we are much better than the traditional banks in this. I'll give an example. AstraZeneca is a client of Taulia. Before they got on the platform, they tried to do it through a traditional bank, one of the global banks. The global bank spent 4 years to onboard 52 suppliers, only 52 suppliers. They were able to free up about $170 million in the supply chain. That's a good number, but still. So AstraZeneca's leadership said, we want to do more. They came to Taulia. Within 9 months, because of the technology and the scalability of our solution, we were able to onboard more than 2,000 suppliers in 9 months and freed up $600 million in the supply chain. So technology will allow us to reach the smaller suppliers. Without technology, you cannot reach the smaller suppliers. Now you ask me, okay, are you really getting to all the small suppliers? Well, if the supply chain or the value chain in a specific vertical, let's say in the kingdom or in another emerging market, if the suppliers are set up in a way that they're catering to these large organizations, large corporations, and in some of these large corporations, they have a CSR initiative to be dealing with a lot of small suppliers and make sure that they're treating the supply chain fairly, and that they can achieve even more and better, and they achieve their objectives by working off of a platform like Taulia, because they can, as a buyer, they can increase their days payables outstanding through third-party financing without inconveniencing the suppliers. And to the extent smaller suppliers are catering to them, they can accelerate their payments at a lower cost than any other approach and enhance their balance sheets. And back to your question, it's really vertical specific and country specific.
Excellent. Actually, Dr. Mazen, correct me if I'm wrong. And this is specifically when I look to your CV and when I get to know that you are specialized in knowledge management in terms of expert system and artificial intelligence system, the key element of this one is understanding the data, analyzing the data, and putting things together along, looking for the economical part.
Yes.
So how do you apply all this so that you can, tailor the decision making in SME in a way that it will be faster and more accurate to the financing part or to the financing arms, so that you reduce the risk and increase the efficiency?
Yes, and thanks for mentioning this, Mr. Hammam. As you said, because of the advantage we have in seeing all the data for transactions, Taulia is more than a 10-year-old startup, so it's been around for a while. And we have this advantage of seeing all that data and data related to specific buyers and specific suppliers, and we can inform the third-party financiers or even the buyers and suppliers about the various analytic insights and results and optimize the pricing of any offer in terms of whether it's dynamic discounting where the buyer is offering a discount against an invoice for accelerated payment to their own supplier, or the supplier accessing third-party finance through a bank like NCB getting on the platform, or non-bank financial institutions that are on the platform offering these third-party finance. We optimize the offers, and on top of that, we introduce new products and services because of the data that we have, just like we just introduced in the partnership with Google, the cognitive invoicing that's purely based on AI and text recognition, basically.
And can that model be tailored to economy with the level of Saudi Arabia, where we have a large and healthy economy, but the volume is not as large as US market? We are in the mid-size, and probably country like Turkey gets also the service like the same way. So do you think that's it can be tailored to Saudi Arabia?
Very much so, and we're about to announce a very large deal in the kingdom, and we're very proud of that. And that would be very helpful for the suppliers of this large buyer that's getting on the platform. And if you think about it, in the UK and several OECD markets, 62% of invoices issued by SMEs are delayed in their payments. And the delays there range in 18 days to 50 days for each invoice in OECD. In the GCC, for some reason, the delays are longer and the percentage of invoices delayed are higher. And to the extent the buyers are on the platform, this would be very helpful for the economy, for liberating capital, for enabling growth at the SME level, and that would be very helpful. And that's why we're very excited about the opportunities in the kingdom and the GCC.
I trust this is, it will address the pain right now where SMEs they are facing in Saudi Arabia, especially that we know that the Ministry of Finance, they are working on that part especially to address all the pain where the SME getting their payment fast and executed in a swift way. I believe if we have such a platform that it can serve with the guarantee program, hopefully that it can create a kind of solution. It will add value to the Saudi economy.
Yes.
Another question comes now to Mr. Badr. It says that in RX, the average ticket size is very high. Okay, so which is good. What about companies which working in education and health sector, tourism industry? Do Saudi RX and MBFIs or financing company, as you said, do access to this type of businesses? And what about the financing midway, i.e. to be a Sharia compliance? We know that they are using the ticket normally autos or other. Do you have any other models to use to be a Sharia compliance?
The average ticket size is affected by the portfolio. In our portfolio, we have micro, small, medium, and large. And if we are to look at the SME business, which is the majority of our business, and we take an average of that, that would be much less than 3 million, as I mentioned. The other part of the question is for the medical and education. Of course, having our traditional finance leasing product, we do actually business with medical or health providers. We do leasing of medical equipment, and this is one of the strategic direction actually going forward. And it helps a lot, especially small-sized clinics, medium hospitals, and we organize with a supplier also. We acquire the equipment for them, and they install it, and they pay over a reasonable period of time. What was the last part of the question?
I believe that's they are talking about tourism and other industries.
Yes. Basically,
Health.
in other kinds of businesses, we have the murabaha product, which doesn't, it helps in the working capital. And whether it's tourism or education or health, it's the same concept. We can provide whether asset leasing, if they need assets for example, if it's a school and they need to, furnish the school, buy the equipment and so on, we can do asset leasing. If it's tourism, again, we can do either working capital or asset leasing, depending on their requirement. But these are definitely strategic, sectors, and we are happy to cater for.
Batul, I have received a question which is specific to you. In terms of regulator, what do you think needed to be done in order to support the type of business you are doing from regulation point of view? What is the framework you believe that you need to support your business?
We are all talking about the receivable finance for the SMEs. For me, it is the best thing to have to reach the finance because we are on the receivable finance side. We are not dealing with the SME side. We are only looking at all the credit decision processes. We are only dealing with the buyer. We are checking the buyer credibility, and especially for the pricing side, we are looking at the buyers, how big it is, kind of thing. Of course, knowing your customer is very important, but it is the credibility side. The important thing is the receivable itself. So, on the regulatory side, if the receivable is a powerful instrument, it is very important. For example, in Turkey, we are taking assignments, and it is all the payments in Turkey has been done by the validated checks. But the check the check itself, they have a very powerful legal. It's a very powerful system in the legal authority, but invoice do not have any power. So, kind of things has to be improved by the regulatory authorities. I don't know in Saudi Arabia how the regulator value the invoice and the validated checks, but these kind of things are very important for SMEs because all financing is depending on these instruments.
Absolutely. It is almost the same.
It's almost the same. So it is the power of invoice is very important because all the system is depending on the invoice.
Excellent. Okay.
And I would like to mention one. We have under the FCI we have an Islamic factoring product. It's a new product. In Turkey, especially in the finance companies, we have only Islamic finance products, and there is a very huge potential from the market. It's almost 10-15% of the total turnover. So now we have a new product under the FCI. It's Islamic factoring, and we have a new agreement for the supplementary agreement for the general rules of international factoring. This is also very important because some of the SMEs they do not want a normal financing. They need an Islamic financing. It is this kind of new products are very important in the market also.
Okay. To close up, I would like to get from each one of you, if you don't mind, one last statement as an advice to our audience, just to give us a summary from your experience. I'll start with Batul.
Well, I would like to say that receivable finance is our core product. So it is important for SMEs to know this product, the different product under the asset-based finance. This is for me. This is my experience is almost 30 years. For the SMEs, this is the only solution to reach the cheap and fast and continuous and sustainable finance.
If I would like to mention something, I would probably talk about what finance companies, what value do they add to SMEs. I mean, something that we sometimes don't think about much. Many of the finance companies are actually SMEs. And finance companies are in a very good position to understand the challenges of SMEs, understand their limitations and cater for their needs. As you mentioned in the beginning, they are faster, more flexible. Decision makers are easily accessible. And really finance companies provide a lot of value to SMEs regardless of the pricing. And I think we are positioned very well together with Kafalah to reach out to such an important segment, which is part of the vision of the country.
Dr. Mazen?
Thank you. SMEs are the main drivers of growth, innovation, and employment creation in any economy. And for SMEs, managing receivables is the lifeblood and a critical strategic function for them. And to the extent non-bank financial institutions and fintech companies like Tali are able to facilitate and accelerate the payments for SMEs, this really contributes to a healthier SME sector and creates growth and opportunities in the economy.
Excellent. So, in summary, win-win is the name of the game with MBFIs. And think fast, execute fast, be dynamic. This is, I believe, the lessons we learned today with MBFI. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to appreciate thanking our guest speakers for the informative session we have here. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your very informative session. Thanks.
إذن شكرا جزيلا لرئيس الجلسة والمتحدثين. Thank you indeed for our moderator and the panelists. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have another panel discussion which will be conducted in Arabic only, as all the speakers are Arabics, or will be speaking Arabic, and so please make use of the simultaneous interpretation headsets if you don't have one. إذن هذه الجلسة ستعقد بالعربية، وهي تتحدث عن التمويل الرأسمالي للشركات الناشئة ورأس المال الجريء والمستثمر والملاك. إذن أدعو رئيس الجلسة والمتحدثين إلى المنصة. أدعو رئيس الجلسة والمتحدثين إلى المنصة مشكورين. إذا تحتاج المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة إلى الوصول إلى مصادر التمويل المناسبة لجميع مراحلها، في حين أنه لا يزال الإقراض المصرفي يمثل أهم مصدر للتمويل الخارجي للمنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة، فقد تكون آليات التمويل البديلة الأخرى ملائمة بشكل أكبر لتلبية احتياجات التمويل للشركات الجديدة والمبتكرة والسريعة النمو. ستكشف الجلسة دور رأس المال الاستثماري والملاك في توسيع إمكانية وصول المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة إلى التمويل، وسيرأس هذه الجلسة مشكورا سعادة الأستاذ فهد النعيم مدير عام التمويل الرأسمالي في منشآت. فليتفضل هو والمتحدثين مشكورين.
على هذه الترتيبات الرائعة. بداية بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين. اسمحوا لي أعرف في المتحدثين معي اللي هم الحقيقة من العيار الثقيل في مجال الاستثمارات الجريئة وتمويل الشركات الناشئة. على يساري معالي الدكتور نبيل كوشك، الرئيس التنفيذي للشركة السعودية للاستثمارات الجريئة، ومعنا الأستاذ عمر مجدوعي الشريك المؤسس ورئيس التنفيذي لشركة رائد فنتشرز للاستثمار. وكذلك معنا الأستاذ فارس الراشد، مؤسس ورئيس مجلس إدارة مجموعة عقاد المستثمرين الأفراد. ومعنا أيضا الأستاذ عبد الله عسيري، مؤسس ورئيس التنفيذي لشركة لوسيديا. بداية لا يخفى على أحد أهمية قطاع المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة أو ما يسمى بالأساميز، حيث أنه من أهم ركائز النجاح لأي اقتصاد منتعش لأسباب كثيرة أذكر منها بعض النقاط. أولاً قطاع الأساميز هو الموفر الأول لفرص العمل في أي سوق أو اقتصاد، وهذا يخفف الضغط على القطاع العام وكذلك يقلل من نسب البطالة اللي هي آفة تضر جدا بالاقتصاديات. في دول مثل جنوب شرق آسيا نجد مثلا ماليزيا واندونيسيا أرقام الوظائف اللي تقدمها المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة كبيرة جدا. في اندونيسيا على سبيل المثال 97% من الوظائف في سوق العمل هي وظائف في منشآت صغيرة ومتوسطة. وكذلك في دول الجوار مثل تركيا 75% من الوظائف في سوق العمل التركي هي في منشآت صغيرة ومتوسطة. أيضا المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة تلعب دور كبير في تنمية الصادرات في البلد. فمثلا في الصين 68% من صادرات الصين هي منتجات شركات صغيرة ومتوسطة. بما أن تكلمنا عن تركيا، حتى تركيا برضو 55% من صادراتها هي منتجات شركات صغيرة ومتوسطة. وما ننسى أي صناعة ثقيلة أو صناعة معقدة مثل صناعة السفن ولا صناعة السيارات أو حتى الايروسبيس أو الطيران، هي عبارة عن تجمع لأساميز أو منشآت صغيرة ومتوسطة كل منها يختص بجزء معين، سواء كان ورش للسك والأشغال الحديدية، الماذر بوردز في مثلا في الطائرات وغير ذلك. لذلك أولت المملكة أهمية قصوى لقطاع تنمية المنشآت الصغيرة والمتوسطة، ومن أهداف الرؤية هي رفع مساهمة هذه المنشآت من المستويات الحالية اللي هي بحدود 500 مليار ريال إلى أن تصل 2.1 تريليون، بمعنى أكثر من 4 أضعاف من الآن إلى سنة 2030. ولتحقيق هذا لابد من خلق بيئة حاضنة لرواد الأعمال والشركات الناشئة. ومن أهم سبل إنجاحها وليست الأهم ولكن من أهمها توفير الفرص التمويلية. طبعا لو شفنا الممارسات العالمية أو في أغلب الحالات رائد الأعمال وخصوصا في مرحلة السيد أو التأسيس وما قبل التأسيس البريسيد غالبا يلجأ إلى أدوات رأس المال، ويمكن هذا اللي يميز حلقة النقاش هذه، لأنها ما هي بالأقراض، هي بالاستثمار أو الإكويتي. وغالبا اللي يقدم هذه الاستثمارات إما تكون رائد الأعمال نفسه من مدخراته أو من الأهل والأصدقاء أو ما يسمون بالأنجل انفسترز، ومعنا أكثر من أنجل انفستر هنا في الجلسة. بل أن بعض رؤوس الأموال المؤسساتية مثل صناديق الاستثمار الجريء تتدخل في هذه الستيج أو هذه الفئة العمرية من الشركات اللي هي السيد والبريسيد. لذلك حاب أبدأ بسؤال ودي أعرف المتحدثين وقارئ رأيهم عن الموضوع، وهو ما تقييمك لقطاع الاستثمار في الشركات الناشئة في السعودية سواء كان فينتشر كابيتال أو انجل انفستمنتس ومقارنتها في الدول المتقدمة في هذا المجال؟ لعل نبدأ مع الدكتور نبيل.
طيب، بسم الله. يعني أولاً يعني أنا ربي أكرمني أن أكون في هذا القطاع من يمكن أكثر من 10 سنوات، وعالم ريادة الأعمال والشركات الناشئة والتحديات اللي يمكن نعاني منها تحديداً في توفر الكابيتال أو رأس المال الجريء اللي يحفز ويستثمر بهذه الجرأة في هذه المجالات. أعتقد في السنوات الأخيرة طبعاً الحراك الكبير اللي حاصل، كنا نحلم بصندوق جريء واحد في السعودية ما كان موجود، الآن عندنا أكثر من 11. في نفس الوقت حتى في الاستثمار الملائكي
الانجل انفستمنت تحديدا ما كان موجود. الان من 8 سنوات يمكن اخوي فارس هو فارس الاستثمار الملائكي في المملكه، والان سنسمع عن استثمارات كل شهر سواء على مستوى الاستثمار الملائكي والانجل انفستمنت او في مجال الفنتشر كابيتال. طبعا بالاضافه الى التطور المتسارع اللي حصل في السنوات الاخيره، موضوع تخصيص جزء من برنامج تحفيز القطاع الخاص، موضوع الاستثمار الجريء وتخصيص 2.8 مليار، وثم كانت مبادرة في منشآت والآن تحولت إلى شركة، وتشرف بتعيين رئيس تنفيذي للشركة. نستثمر مباشرة بالشراكة مع المستثمرين في الشركات لتغطية الفجوات التمويلية، لا ننافس المستثمر الجريء. والبرنامج الثاني هو الاستثمار في صناديق الاستثمار الجريء، لأنه كثير من صناديق الاستثمار الجريء كانت تعاني من لما يكون الفند ريزنج، المرحلة هذه اللي هو استقطاب المستثمرين بياخذوا فيها وقت. الآن يمكن هذا حيسهل كثير على الصناديق. فصراحة احنا نعيش في عصر ذهبي. وكان يسألني أحد الأصدقاء مع أحد الدول المجاورة يقول ايش صاير عندكم في السعودية؟ قلت له الآن يعني الرياض تحديدا is becoming the capital of venture capital. اللي يشوف حجم الأرقام، تخصيص من الدولة في هذا المجال والدعم والتحفيز اللي موجود من البرامج المختلفة، وكمان أدى تنوع في الحلول. كنا أول يا إما إقراض فقط، إقراض للشركات الكبيرة، الآن في إقراض للشركات الصغيرة والمتوسطة، الإقراض غير المباشر، كفالة، والأدوار هذه قاعدين احنا نشوفها. هذه البرامج كلها تعطي حلول متنوعة إبداعية في التمويل بناء على كل شركة ناشئة أو رائد أعمال واحتياجاته. أعتقد هذا التنوع في الحلول حياته مرونة للاختيار من هذه الحلول التمويلية المختلفة.
جميل. الآن ينتقل لأبو عبد الله فارس الراشد، برضو تقييمك عن لسوق تمويل الشركات الناشئة من ناحية النضج والعمق، وبرضو من منظور المستثمر الملائكي.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اولا اشكر برنامج كفاله على هذا المؤتمر، وانا اعتقد جاب وقته. يعني لما نقول الايكو سيستم، يمكن لما نرجع مثلا 9 أو 10 سنوات سابقه ما كان يعني فيه مثل هالزخم اللي شايفينه اليوم، ولله الحمد. يمكن الدكتور نبيل تكلم عن هذا الموضوع. المشكله كانت في انه البنوك تمول للشركات، ما نقول الصغيره، يمكن بعد اكبر من الصغيره شوي فما فوق. اما اللي تحت فما يحصلون للاسف الشركات الناشئه على تمويل. احنا مثلا في انا احب اسمينا المستثمرين الافراد وليس الملائكيه. فالمستثمرين الافراد وجدنا انه في فعلا قصور في هذا الموضوع. دخلنا من 2011 وبدأنا نستثمر مع الشركات الناشئة، لأنه في هذه المرحلة لا يمكن يحصل على تمويل، وإنما يحصل على استثمار من مستثمر ذو خبرة يساعده في هذه المرحلة الخطرة للشركة. والحمد لله وصلنا إلى أكثر من 50 شركة استثمرنا فيها من 2011 إلى اليوم. اليوم لما أجي أشوف الشركات اللي يجون يعرضون عندنا في عقال، لما ارجع واشوف الشركات السابقه صراحه في تطور كبير. صار فيه يعني الانتربرنور او رواد الاعمال عرف كيف يوصل للمستثمر وعرف كيف يوصل الفكره، صار يعرف انه لازم يجيب معه تيم. واللي صار اليوم مع منشآت ودعم منشآت لهذا القطاع، منشآت عملت معنا في عقال على برنامج ماتشنج بروجرام او التطابق. مستثمر فرد يحط مبلغ مثلا 1,000,000 ريال في شركه ناشئه، منشآت يحطون مبلغ 1,000,000 ريال. فهذا شجع المستثمرين عندنا في عقال. بدأنا هذا المشروع هذه السنه، ونتمنى ان شاء الله انه يكون داعم كبير ان نزود عدد الشركات السنويه اللي نستثمر فيها. كذلك البرنامج الاخر اللي يعمل عليه الدكتور نبيل في شركه الاستثمار الجريء، اللي هو الماتشنج مع صناديق راس المال الجريء. وهذه كانت يمكن من الاشياء اللي اخرت الناس تخاف او صار بالاحرى كم بيسي حاولوا يسوون فند ريزنج ولا قدروا يجمعون المبالغ. اليوم بدعم من شركه راس المال الجريئه السعوديه اعتقد صار في توقيع 6 يعني صناديق، وراح تجي هذه الصناديق. احنا بالنسبه لنا كانجل ان نستثمر في المرحله الاولى، الصناديق تستثمر في المرحله اللي بعدها السيد والسيريس اي. فاتوقع ان شاء الله في السنوات الجايه انه يصير في عندنا انجل انفستور، وبعدين يصير في عندنا ناس او فند متخصص في السيد، وبعدين يجي عندنا فند متخصص في السيريس اي وهكذا وسيريس بي. في هذه المرحله يصير في عندنا ايكو سيستم، بعدها تقدر الشركه تروح للبنوك تاخذ التمويل. فاعتقد يعني الحمد لله الايكو سيستم اعتقد انه بدا تونا نبدا يعني.
جميل. برضو من الاستاذ عبد الله عسيري من منظور رائد اعمال له قصه نجاح ما شاء الله، قرينا عنها وتعلمنا عنها. برضو انت تقييمك من الجهه الاخرى من المعادله عن نضوج سوق الاستثمار الجريء في السعوديه.
والله اول شيء اشكركم على الاستضافه. بالنسبه للسؤال هذا سؤال جيد صراحه، لان انا اذكر كنت يعني على قولتهم اصارع في عام 2011 لما بدأت اول شركه. اصارع بس الاقي صندوق استثمار راس مال جريء ممكن هو يبدا يستثمر ويدخل في الشركه. في نفس الوقت يعني اذكر هذيك الايام حاولت مع قطاع البنوك بحيث انه نحصل على تمويل لشركتي، وكان الوضع صراحه مزعج. حاليا انا اتفق مع الاستاذ فارس، احنا حاليا في البدايه، لكن لما نطالع وضعنا اليوم ونطالع وضعنا قبل 7 سنوات 8 سنوات في تغيير جدا كبير. يعني من اول كان فعليا معدودين الشركات او الفي سيز معدودين جدا، وخيارات تمويليه جدا خلينا نقول شحيحه. حاليا في تنوع، طبعا مو التنوع اللي احنا نطمح له، لكن احنا متجهين في هذا الاتجاه. حاليا في خيارات حتى مش بس في سيز، في خيارات تمويليه من ناحيه القروض ما الى ذلك، ففي تحسن كبير. في استيعاب من الكوميونتي، في استيعاب حتى من الشركات القطاع الخاص الكبار ان هم يتعاملون مع الشركات الناشئه، في استيعاب من الجهات الحكوميه انه تتعامل مع الشركات الناشئه. فالحمد لله احنا اقدر اقول ان احنا ماشيين في الطريق السليم، لسه ما وصلنا خلينا نقول، لكن احنا ان شاء الله حنوصل للشيء اللي نبغاه بالسرعه الكافيه.
جميل، شكرا لك. نفس السؤال استاذ عمر، بحيث انك انت مؤسس احد اول الصناديق المؤسساتيه في الاستثمار الجريء، تقييمك، وبرضه احب اضيف شق اخر للسؤال، انه لاحظنا مؤخرا نوع من الحراك والنشاط في الاستثمار المؤسساتي في الفنتشر كابيتال. سؤالي هو لماذا الان؟ وش اللي جد؟ ومع العلم انه الفي سي ما هو شيء جديد، يعني من الايتيز والبروبلي 70s كان في فنتشر كابيتال. تفضل.
طيب شكرا اول شيء اخواني، الله يعطيكم العافيه. بس بنفرق اول شيء بين الشركات الصغيره المتوسطه اللي هي الاس ام ايز، والشركات الناشئه سريعه النمو والتقنيه اللي هي الستارت ابس. فما نقدر نخلط بينهم، ما نقدر نقول ان هذول هم زي هذول يعني اللي هم الاس ام ايز لهم فرص محدوده للنمو، لهم فرص، لهم طريقه تمويل مختلفه، ولهم اثر برضه مختلف. بينما لما نروح للشركات الناشئه سريعه النمو واللي هي في الغالب تقنيه، فهي اول شيء تمويلها مختلف، سرعه نموها مختلفه، واثرها مختلف، وحتى مخاطراتها مختلفه. فاحنا لما نتكلم الحين هنا في الجلسه هذه حنتكلم على الستارت ابس اللي هي شركات سريعه النمو وتقنيه في الغالب. لذلك احنا لما نتكلم هنا نتكلم على الفينشر كابيتال، واللي هو كلمه فينشر جايه بسبب انه فيها مخاطره عاليه. فاحنا بالطريقه هذه نقدر نفرق ونقدر نقول والله ليش احنا نتكلم على فينشر كابيتال ما نتكلم عن الاس ام ايز. طيب الفينشر كابيتال ممتاز جدا، او الفينشر او الستارت ابس، ما نقول الفينشر كابيتال، الفينشر كابيتال هم الفندرز. الستارت ابس عندهم مميزات وعندهم عيوب. مميزاتهم اللي هي انهم اثرهم وعائدهم المالي وعائدهم الاجتماعي اسرع بكثير من الشركات التقليديه، بينما الشركات الاس ام ايز تحتاج كميه كبيره من الشركات حتى يقدر يصير فيها اثر، معناته برضه تحتاج تمويل اكبر بكثير. فزي ما نقول في ليفرج، شيء اسمه الليفرج هنا في الستارت ابس اعلى بكثير، لكنها للاسف مرتبطه بنسبه خطوره ايضا عاليه جدا. لذلك الفينشر كابيتالز اللي هم شركات راس مال جريء تجي هنا عشان تخفف من اثر الخطوره هذه بطرق مختلفه، بطرق من طريقه اختيار الشركات، من طريقه اضافه قيمه للشركات، من ايضا طريقه تخارج ايضا افضل من الاخرين. فاحنا نتكلم الحين عن فينشر كابيتال كاسيت كلاس جديد في السعوديه. اتفق معك انه جديد، هو طبعا موجود لكنه اشكال مختلفه. واعد كانت موجوده بالسابق، موبايل فينشرز كانت موجوده بالسابق،
واحد اللي هي ارام،
واعد وكان في اس تي سي فينشرز من اوائل، كان في المنطقه في ناس برضه يستثمروا. بس ليش تاخرت؟ يمكن في اسباب كثيره. بس انا اعتقد ان اهمها انه كان في اسيت كلاسز اخرى في السوق كانت اكثر اغراء من الفينشر كابيتال. كان العقار نعم كان العقار واكثر امان. فبصراحه يعني لو تشوف انت السنين من 2000 الى 2015 تقريبا كان العقار هو المتسيد على اغلب الاموال اللي تدخل في السعوديه تتحرك في السعوديه، من طريقه اللي هو يعني حتكلم عن الويلث كريشن، اللي هو انه والله الواحد يحاول انه يكبر محفظته الاستثماريه، يكبرها عن طريق الاستثمار في اكثر العوائد، اكثر الاصول عوائدا واقلها خطوره اللي هي كانت العقار. مع التحول في الفيجن 2030 يعني بصراحه فيها بركه كثيره الفيجن هذه، انه فعلا بدات تخلق اقتصاد حقيقي. والاقتصاد الحقيقي هو الاقتصاد اللي يستثمر في الناس ويستثمر في الاصول اللي لها اكثر من اثر فقط مالي، واللي هي من ضمنها واللي منها اهمها وجهه نظري اللي هي الفينشر كابيتال. طبعا هذا واحده من التحركات اللي هي انه بما انه منبع العقار بدا يجف شوي، فالمنابع الاخرى بطبيعه الحال راح تصير افضل واكبر، مع وجود الحافز الرئيسي الكبير اللي جاي من الحكومه الان اللي هو عن طريق شركه راس المال الجديد السعوديه وصندوق الصناديق اللي هو من السيارة. اعتقد انه في الان نقطه تحول كبيره جدا جدا، خاصه انه السوق السعودي سوق مغري جدا للتالنت، سوق مغري جدا للكفاءات الممتازه سواء كان داخل السعوديه او من حول السعوديه او حتى من العالم. فوجود هذه الميزات هي كلها مع وجود هالاستثمارات الممتازه مع وجود صناديق ممتازه، انا اعتقد انها انفليكشن بوينت، اعتقد انها نقطه تحول ممتازه جدا ومهمه في مسيره الستارت ابس اللي هي ان شاء الله تكون لها اثر برضه ممتاز على الاقتصاد على المدى المتوسط والطويل.
ممتاز، شكرا جزيلا. هذا اعطاني فكره سؤال ثاني الدكتور مع الدكتور نبيل. اس تي سي او الشركه السعوديه للاستثمار الجريئه، الفند اوف فندز وكل الصناديق اللي اسسها الدوله، هل برايك سوف تنجح في تطوير سوق الاستثمار الجريء في السعوديه؟ وش الشيء تقدمه اللي شركات الفينشر كابيتال القطاع الخاص ما تستطيع تقديمه؟
صحيح. هو صعب احنا نقيم نفسنا، يمكن ننتظر السوق يقول احنا نضيف قيمه ولا لا، لكن هذه الممارسه ما يعني لم تاتي من فراغ، هذه ممارسه عالميه. كثير من الدول كانت هناك دراسه قامت بها منشآت بطلب من برنامج تحفيز القطاع الخاص انه دراسه ايش الفجوات التمويليه، ومن احد هذه الفجوات التمويليه موضوع الاستثمار الجريء اللي يستثمر في الشركات الناشئه القابله للنمو السريع والكبير مع بعض. فالدراسه خلصت انه هذه ممارسه عالميه في بريطانيا، في كندا، في كوريا، في ماليزيا، في دول كثير كان في بنش ماركس ايش سوت الدول في هذا المجال تحديدا. فالهدف الاساسي كان ان زي ما ذكر اخوي عمر انه كان في مجالات اخرى للاستثمار موجوده واكثر امانا، العقار وغيرها. كيف ححفز الان ان الناس تخش في هذا المجال العالي المخاطره، لكن في فرص كمان كبيره بتضيع على المستثمرين لانه ما في يعني يمكن دعم، ولانه المنظومه رياده الاعمال لسه يعني في طور النضج او انها في طريقها الى النضج. هذه الدراسه خلصت انه هذه ممارسه عالميه وكان لها اثر على تحفيز المستثمر الجريء في الدول المختلفه. وهذه كانت مبادره راس المال الجريء منشآت، وتحولت الى شركه لاعطائها المرونه ان هي تنفذ هذا البرنامج بتخصيص 2.8 مليار ريال سعودي، وايضا 750 ما يعادل 750 مليون دولار أمريكي. وعندنا برنامجين، برضو البرنامجين دي صممت بمعنى البرامج اللي طبقت في العالم وأعطت نجاحات وأثر، لأنه إحنا في الآخر كمان صحيح نبحث عن العوائد لاستدامة الصندوق، لكن كمان مهم بالنسبة لنا الأثر، فإحنا بنغطي الفجوات عشان لا نخرب السوق. مثال في برنامجنا الأول اللي هو الاستثمار المباشر بالشراكة مع المستثمرين، ما ودي أنافس القطاع الخاص والمستثمر الجريء من القطاع،